against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. Our toil, resources, and livelihood are all involved. So is the very structure of our society. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or democratic processes. We should take nothing for granted. Only an alert and knowledgeable citizenry can compel the proper meshing of the huge industrial and military machinery of defense with our peaceful methods and goals.
This is Jim Fetzer in Madison with Dean Ryan in Austin, Mike Bear in Seattle. Continuing with the latest, USA Today has declared Millie Weaver's ShadowGate film devoid of evidence. If you want powerful confirmation that Millie Weaver was right over the target, you have it here. Remember, for the first 30 hours before YouTube began to ban all copies, 700,000 views, over millions now. It's extremely questionable why it would be banned. No hate speech, no misleading medical information, no violence, merely explaining claims about data collection, surveillance, what the government's doing behind the scenes. The piece continues. The video is filled with false claims and insinuations centering on the notion that a cabal of federal contractors is using advanced data collection techniques to engineer global events and orchestrate a coup against President Donald Trump. Why they would claim those are false is completely beyond me, because everything that was presented there appears to me to be 100% correct. Meanwhile, Alex Jones has entered the fray. I think this is rather odd. I've been totally chumped, and I'll admit it. I want to think about this Jones told guest, Roger Stone. I think whoever ran this did all of this and did get her arrested right when the operation was happening to give this full push against you, buddy. He went on to explain, the last thing is Weaver said, this guy's in town, he's in my film, he wants to be on, so the guy's at the door, he comes in and I've got him here in studio. Oh, I go, okay, who runs it? And I learned Roger Stone is the kingpin. Roger Stone had nothing to do with this. Millennial Millie, as Millie calls herself, responded to her former boss. I'd publicly challenge Alex Jones to a 10,000 wager, not from my legal fund, but from my InfoWars earnings. Show me where in ShadowGate we disparage Roger Stone in the manner you have described. Put up or shut up. Meanwhile, confirmation that Mike's been right all along, that AG Barr has been holding out. We have the report of an immunity agreement to protect Biden and Obama from evidence found during John Durham's probe of illegal spying. This is profoundly disturbing. A top FBI official has revealed on the Thomas Paine podcast the feds have been asked to ignore compelling evidence linking Barack Obama and Joe Biden to the U.S. government's illegal counterintelligence investigation waged against the 2016 Trump campaign. In shocking detail, the feds reveal Attorney General Barr has provided de facto immunity. Your thoughts?
Well, let me start from the low-hanging fruit, and that's Millie Weaver. And I do want to make a public apology for introducing the world to Millie Weaver. And yes, that's true. Millie Weaver was discovered by me in 2013, and she wanted, I got her the job at InfoWars. I was slowly doing that. And I thought she's exactly what the alternative media needs. You know, a pretty girl just spouting off the news, reading.
Damn it. Hold on. I don't know what's going on here.
No, she's a bad human being who, you know, who publicly disemboweled me because her boyfriend at the time, 7 years ago, said, because he was trying to buy his way into InfoWars when I was working there. So he wanted to get me out of the way. So she said, with a bold-faced sociopath look, she didn't know who I was on a Twitter, Twitter rant. And then she's never met me before, even though we did reports together. And in full disclosure, I went on a few dates with her mom, and she's a stripper. And you know, it was different times back then. I'm a family man now, and so. But
good evening and welcome to the American Awakening. I have tomorrow. I will be doing an interview at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or Eastern Daylight Time, I believe would be more accurate. With that gentleman right there, Dean Ryan. I had a long talk with him today. This is when you see the connections, when you see the connections to this guy fills in a lot of blanks. I'm not going, this is not like this is not something done out of spite, to be mean, anything like that. If you think that, you're completely wrong. Am I going to have some fun with this? Most likely. I have fun with everything, right? If you couldn't laugh, you'd have to cry with this stuff. But when you understand how some of these connections go back so far to what we're talking about, when you understand the depth of the Masonic connections to all of this, in fact, that's what caught my attention with Mr. Ryan some time back. Because, you know, when I was first listening to this and watching this, I was like, oh, wow, this guy is just pissed off. This isn't true. But then he goes on to say some things that were like, okay, this is legit. Like when he started talking about how Gavin was really into OTAN and Masonic cults and shit, I was like, wait a minute, this guy does know them, because as you guys know, that's one of the things, like kind of towards the end of our whatever you would call it, Gavin had tried to get me sucked into that with his being a 33rd degree Mason and all. What I think might surprise you is Millie's past and Millie's connections to all of this, to the Masons with her parents and MK Ultra and many other things, which, as you know, goes outside of my AOR. But when you hear what Dean Ryan has to say, which Dean Ryan, like I said, I had a great conversation with him today. But you know, he's like very good friends with Roger Stone and other people whom I have some major issues with. So I understand this is going to be a bumpy road. But this might actually open up some new communications channels with some of these people. I wonder if Alex Jones would actually consider having me back on InfoWars. Wouldn't that be interesting? Not something I would really want to do, but what did Real Firefly says, what or who opened your eyes finally, Berg. Well, it was just an accumulation of a lot of things. It was accumulation, a lot of things. And Lady Girl, she talked to Dark Journalist about this stuff, but she didn't talk about it as if she was involved with it. They were talking about this as if it was a bad thing. I reached out to Dark Journalist about this, and he was like, yeah, I get it. And I'm like, why are you literally, you're talking to Millie about these things as being bad, and I show you right here that this is what they're doing in behind. And Dark Journalist was like, that's okay. So he knows, right? So I find it interesting that someone, on one hand, calls out the deep state, goes after like aliens and all of these things, yet he's completely fine with giving a platform and having a very personable conversation with someone who is who has very close ties, deep ties with like the Masons. So I'm like, well, that's kind of, that's kind of hypocritical, isn't it? So, and what can I do? I'm honest with him. I sent that to him. I shared that to him. We had a conversation a bit back and forth. Respectful, always. At the end of the day, he chose to, cover that up. I think a lot of times, I don't know, man, maybe people just, it's hard for people to admit that they've been played, right? It's kind of easy for me. Actually, that is a check a box thing for narcissism, which I've done a show on. Ego, yes, which I've done a show on. And I may do another one. I was watching the coolest video earlier today. So, that's... So I wanted to throw that out there. This is going to be an interview that I'm doing tomorrow. Again, it's, me and my sense of humor here. But this guy right here, Dean Ryan, okay, what he says confirms a lot of things that I was saying. And not only saying, but providing direct evidence of. Dean is kind of blown away because he has a very particular concern about Millie Weaver. And I don't know who Dean Ryan is. Dean Ryan does not know who Patrick Bergy is, right? I'm telling you right now. We've had like a conversation. I'm not concerned about that, right? What I'm concerned about is getting some answers and finding the truth about some things that actually are quite a big deal, right? These, and like I explained it to him, I'm like, okay, so you know who I'm talking about here. But did you know that these people were so closely like NDAs with Rudy Giuliani? They were literally the ones that were pushing the election claims that have been not only debunked, but were largely the ones that were debunked on national TV during the January 6th committee hearings and used to harm the RNC. Right? So one thing I'm hoping to learn tomorrow is to get a better understanding of who Millie and Gavin were and how all this connects. Oh my God. I don't want to spoil any more, but can I tell you that it connects to the Bundy Ranch? And you know how that connects? Stuart Rhodes, Oath Keepers, Pete Santilli, he's not a fan of Pete Santilli. I like Pete Santilli. This should be an interesting conversation. I'm telling you, this is going to be a good interview. I think there's going to be a lot of eyes on it. I think there are going to be some angry little profiles in the. There's going to be some angry little profiles in the chat. I told them, I said, I hope you got some good moderators. Right? But this is all, and he's blown away by that. And he's like, holy shit! He hadn't been following this at all, right? He had no idea of these connections. And what is it? Time platform 10 o'clock Eastern, but he's on the West Coast. But it's 10 o'clock Eastern, so that's going to be very good. So what I wanted to do tonight, and this is going to piss off Riley, I'm sure, and probably a lot of other people. Before I go into this next clip, which I've been wanting to do for quite some time, right? Kind of digs into like Nick Searcy and that stuff. I've wanted to do this since last week. But I'm going to play a video here in a moment that kind of features a segment of like Millie Weaver's arrest and stuff. Listen, nobody's more pissed off at me than Millie and Gavin, like on this planet. And I told Dean, I said, Dean, I may have surpassed you in their personal angers, right? So if you think that for somehow I'm defending Millie at any point, you're wrong. When you hear me use the reference, the arrest of an American journalist, please understand that I'm still, and I've had shows trying to say, what is a journalist, right? Is Tori a journalist? Shit, no. She's a freaking sociopath, right? What's his face? James O'Keefe a journalist? Kind of think he's more of an asset than a journalist, but yeah, the FBI considers him a journalist, and they put out these standards, and by those standards, I would say probably Millie Weaver would have met that criteria, right? So I don't care. If Tori was working for somebody that met that criteria, put something out, and it was buried by everybody on the planet, I want to find out why. And I don't know whether I have no idea what Millie's motives were and Gavin's motives were from the day they approached me, from the day they contacted me on April 20th, 2020, 420. Ooh, I have no idea from the day Tori contacted me on April 15th. Or the day of Millie's mother's arrest on April 25th, the day that my book arrived at their house, Victim of the Swamp, How the Deep State Stole the 40-Year-Old Private, available now on Amazon. I don't know how these things tie in together. Are they red herrings and just happened coincidentally along with Millie's arrest while uploading ShadowGate? Was that caused because of something that I, as a whistleblower, included in there, something Tori included in there? Could it have been her connection to Hunter Biden's laptop? I actually think they have a connection to there before the election. At least Tori almost certainly did. And then there are other connections like Mike DeMarco and others tell me that, yeah, that should be considered, right? Hell, I go so far in my book as to say it could have been caused by a frickin' raccoon. That's a funny story. And the raccoon is now my official spirit animal. Right? Could have been caused by a fucking raccoon. I don't know what the cause is. I have a personal vested interest in finding out what that is. And sometimes I don't do it so artfully. Sometimes I don't say things as well as other people would. There's not like a manual that comes with what I'm trying to do here. I don't want to be doing this, right? But if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it as good, as good as I can. And I think I got something set up pretty nicely right now to be able to switch around, to be able to put out to multi-streams and a good quality stream, and be able to put together content ahead of time. I'm trying to put something together that allows me to tell this story. Hey, Betty Davis Eyes over in YouTube land. And Hip and all you got. Hip's got the raccoons. What do we got here? Firefly, Wicked, good so far. Well, you guys are getting saying your hellos. Yeah, there's no. Russell says there's no accidents when Tory's involved. Probably not. And by the way, can I just be the first one to put this out there? In November, when almost certainly the Democrat takes the incumbent Republican seat for Secretary of State in Ohio, and in 2024, Ohio has a Democrat Secretary of State counting the votes, I hope everyone thanks Tory, because she is the spoil vote in that. And so if he does win, it will be 1,000% a result of Tory splitting the vote with the Republican that is the incumbent. You realize when that Democrat wins, what's going to happen to Tory's followers when it's now like, oh shit, we're responsible for, and as Ohio goes, so goes the nation. Y'all got frickin' played. Y'all got totally played. You did. And in November, that is going to be true. Ashley, Truth Hurt says Tory is bad. I say, well, I'm just saying, listen, what's going to happen? She's running as a spoiler, independent, against the Republican, the incumbent Republican. Yes, by the way, she's bad in my personal opinion. But she's running. So, I mean, just my personal opinion aside, that Democrat wins, which almost certainly will, because there's nobody taking votes away from the Democrat. Tory's only taking Republican votes away from the Republicans. I think that she is going to be there's going to be an unreserved hate for anybody, for Tory or anybody connected to her, especially through the Trump crowd. Because when you replace an incumbent Republican, even if you think the Republican's like anti-Trump or something, he's still that's kind of bullshit. They're still going to do their job. They're not going to be potentially going to jail or something because they're too butthurt over Trump, right? Those are unsubstantiated bullshit. Hey, Southern Charms, you not feeling good? I'm back in the hospital, so not super responsive. Oh my God, what's going on? I watched House. So if you need any help or medical suggestions, Southern Charms, let me know. I can help you out. And I've stayed at the Magnuson. If you need any legal help, I'm clearly qualified there. So here we go, Southern Charms. Oh, sweetie, prayers. Many more people will be voting than voted Democrat in the past because of this shit show. Actually, Cosmic Club, you're referring to the thing that was put out that showed how the Republicans gained 1 million people as registered votes, right? But the Democrats also gained like 700,000. So it wasn't 1 million person switch. It was a couple 100,000 person switch. And that's early in this game, right? The January 6th committee and the Democrats are not slouches or incompetent, whether you like regardless of what you may think. And yes, I'm going to get a haircut and such before and shave before my interview with Dean. But no, they're not slouches, and you need to pay attention. You need to pay attention to what's going on, because they're literally using these things, right? My conversation with Dean tomorrow is going to be very much when you hear how Dean describes a lot of this stuff, you're going to go, holy shit. Hi, Pam Whitaker. You're going to be going, holy shit. Democrats are going to use this against Republicans. And what percentage of November candidates are there because they are Trump Republicans? You know, Trump MAGA Republicans. A big percentage of them. Some of them in dangerous seats that actually had Republicans as incumbents in them, I believe. I think there's at least 2. Double check those numbers, though, please. So, boy, this is going to be, very interesting. And again, Dean was not, he's looking at it like I do. He's like, holy shit, of course, the Democrats are going to have a field day with this, because he knows these people. Oh my goodness. So let me do this here. I put this together actually a couple days ago. And let's play this for a few minutes. Watch this. This I have not played before. To set up, this was a interview from Rebel Media, I think around right after Millie. Actually, I think Millie Millie got released from jail as he was doing this interview. I've actually cut this up and put stops and stuff in there to comment, but let's get this going.
Thank God. Look at this. Breaking news, breaking news, breaking news. Millie, Gavin, and Chuck all are being released this afternoon. The kids will stay with Millie and Gavin. Everybody should be reunited by dinner. All great news. Just finished speaking with the attorneys a few minutes ago. Thanks. Isn't that amazing? You just heard it live. But I want to talk a little bit about an interesting little story out of the United States. Maybe some of you have heard of the independent journalist named Millie Weaver. She started her TV career, I think, under the nickname Millennial Millie, because she's a youngster. And
that was an awesome coin thing, wasn't it, Tony?
I can't claim to know her in a personal way. I just know her like so many other people do. I watch her stuff, and I like what she does. She's telegenic. She's courageous. She's sort of a happy warrior. She's friendly, and people talk to her. And so, I'm just a fan. That's all. But I saw this shocking video of her being arrested at her home with kids there. And I know a little something about how arrests go. I'm a former lawyer myself, and we've had some trouble-making rebels over the years, Tommy Robinson being an obvious example. And I know that unless there's some hot pursuit or something like that, or unless someone is a dangerous, violent criminal who might flee or commit more violence, typically police just call you up and say, hey, can you, as a courtesy, they say, we're going to arrest you. Do you want to come down to the police station? Or do you want to, or they call your lawyer and say, would you like to come in and let's do the paperwork. And they do that typically to avoid embarrassment for the arrested person. Like, you've got to have a mean streak as a cop or a prosecutor to barge into someone at a public restaurant or at their office, or you know, if you watch The Sopranos, at your daughter's wedding. So the idea that they would go to Millie's home and arrest her in front of the kids on a Friday afternoon, so that by the time she's processed, she's in jail all weekend, that was a bunch of prosecutors and police using their discretion to make it as embarrassing and painful as possible. If she were arrested on any other day of the week, she would have been in front of a judge within hours rather than days. And, you know, she's no flight risk. She's got kids and a house. She's not violent at all. The charges have nothing to do, no relation to violence. So I saw this video, and I saw her repeatedly ask the cop, what's going on? What's the charge? What are you doing? And not getting an answer. And it was just so abnormal to me. I felt compelled to do something about it. And I'll tell you what I did in a moment, but first let me play for you at least a portion of the cell phone footage of Millie Weaver's arrest. Take a look at this.
Break.
You're saying a grand jury indicted me? For what?
We're going to have 221s out here. We have room to transport one. Can you send us a car, please? Okay. I will give you all your paperwork when we get to the jail. Right now, I need you to get some shoes.
Okay.
Because we need to get moving.
You see what I did there? I cut out his saying the Millie's address so as not to dox them. But the funny thing about that is he goes on later to complain about how people dox other people. I'm like, well, dude, you doxed Millie.
Get this thing care.
Well, this time you're not going anywhere. Okay. No.
Guys, I don't know what's happening right now. The police have just showed up at my house, and they said that they're arresting me. They said that a grand jury
Old video,
indicted me for
Ashley.
something. I have no idea what. This is
From
crazy.
2020.
Where's my shoe? I have one shoe here. Okay.
And one shoe there.
Okay.
So we're good.
So why wasn't I given anything in the mail? Like, I have no idea what this is talking about.
And, you know, legitimately, it's a sealed indictment. I don't know how anybody would reasonably know that this was happening. Could they have? Maybe. I think actually possibly Tori knew, because Tori's like, how much time left? How far along are we on the download? As if you know, knowing that cops were getting ready to show up. But, you know, so I guess if Tori knew, you know, possibly Millie could. I don't know. Kind of seemed like she was taken by surprise. She certainly, that is true, she's certainly on a sealed indictment, wouldn't have gotten anything in the mail, right? So no matter what, and I'm not, again, defending frickin' Millie here. I'm trying to rationalize what might have happened. And you can only do that, if you ask questions and then find the truth to those, right? That's the only way. And if you can't turn it in, it shouldn't be turned into like a personal thing. This is about finding out something, the truth, to something that is highly relevant to me and should be relevant to everyone.
Guys, I'm literally about to break huge breaking news right now, and I'm being arrested, and I have no idea why.
Again, I have No idea. If it's related to that, if it's related to the frickin' raccoon, which is an adorable story. I'm asking a damn question. How else am I going to find this out? Where's the frickin' manual on how to do this or how to behave or how to ask or how to do anything? It is an impossible thing. Do you realize how much I've been attacked from just trying to be, just as a damn whistleblower, not trying to be like some social media superstar? That's never been my desire. It wasn't before. It isn't now. While these guys were all trying to build up their likes and their follows, I was overseas. And you can go back to my social media and see that. I was overseas fighting a war with the Department of Defense. So I didn't, this isn't something I liked or wanted to do or want to do now. But it's something I feel absolutely compelled to do. Even if I don't do it as artistically as other people might do it. If at any point someone else can do this better, please jump in, and I love criticism, or if I do something incorrect, point it out. But don't think that I'm like taking a position or side on any side with any of this stuff. It's just asking questions. In questions I think are legitimate, like, is this, was an American journalist, what she's describing there right now, I can't believe, I'm uploading this, did this help the sales of, well, there were no sales. It was uploaded freely to the internet. Could there have been potentially really good t-shirt and hat sales and shit from that? Yes. But were there royalties from it by releasing it that way and then as part of an arrest? Please, would somebody explain that to me? Right? Please explain to me what their motive was for destroying whatever, what was a pretty nice gig, 10 grand a month, a nice RV, with InfoWars. Somebody tell me how, if this was a plan, how it was to benefit them, right? So I want to know that should be important. That show me a murder trial where you don't have at least, what was the motive? Well, we don't know. Okay, well, no, that's a key component to these things.
Burglary? Yeah. For what? They're not even saying. They're saying
Okay.
we're being charged.
Okay.
With
Now, is this from the grand jury or these green sheets?
Grand jury?
Are these green sheets or are they grand?
And for a couple days, this was a big deal. Oh, a journalist. But then it just freaking disappeared. And all these journalists and such and colleagues, Jack Posobiec, Laura Logan, and all these people who claim to call Millie a friend just turned their backs on her publicly, right? Laura Logan apparently remained a close confidant of Millie's throughout this time. But please, I'd love anyone to show me an extensive report by Laura Logan on the arrest of an American journalist. Waiting. Anytime now, Laura Logan. I guess Bergy's just a dick. No reason for it. No, these require answers.
Is this an indictment?
Get your BB gun.
Okay, very good.
Get your right there. Stop. Dad, get your BB gun. Before I got there with my 380 and shot that raccoon from at least 160 feet out, Gavin was trying to stop the raccoon problem he had eating his chickens with a BB gun. That's why his son just yelled, "Dad, get the BB gun." Now, the raccoon, after I shot and killed a couple raccoons, one of the raccoons went in and just mercilessly killed a chicken. It was totally Godfather shit, right? Like, you kill one of ours, we'll kill one of yours, right? Didn't eat it, didn't do anything, just killed it. And so it became war with me and the raccoons. Now, when I left, Gavin and Chuck decided to order a 22 so that they could sit in the backyard and shoot the raccoons to keep them from killing the chickens. And but it took like a couple months, like over a month, for them to get approval from the gun store to be able to pick up the gun. It's got to get approved from the state. You got COVID going on. You got all these things. And I'm also thinking, you know, and also keep in mind, Chuck and Gavin, whoever applied for it, I think it was Chuck that applied for it, he was under a sealed indictment. Does the state of Ohio have some connection with law enforcement that if someone's under a sealed indictment and they put in a license to buy a weapon, that it would be reported? I think maybe it would, because right before, just before, or as that cop was pulling in, or just before that cop pulled in, Chuck had, I believe, left because he got a call from the gun store that they had been approved and to come pick up the gun. Did that trigger something? Was that somehow responsible for the police showing up at that time, at that moment, and then it was just a red herring that she was uploading the documentary? Again, there are many, yes, all charges were dropped, right? There are many, not just dropped, thrown out of court and then sealed. So, but apparently somebody got them unsealed somehow or another, I think. But I don't think the actual, like the results and stuff of it, I think those were sealed. So what gives? We need to understand what's going on. What happened to Millie and Gavin after they were arrested? Did law enforcement, was that set up from a skiff at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, as Laura Logan suggested? And if that was the case, perhaps when they were in jail, law enforcement made them an offer that they couldn't refuse. And maybe at that point, they were working as confidential informants for the Department of Justice or some other organization. Think about it. They were taking her kids away. Would you? And there were there's just way too many super sketchy things that were going on around her arrest and all of these things. Right? And then she ends up right there, tied in right there next to Trump. So you want to just dismiss the things that I'm saying? You want to just not have a conversation about Millie? I don't think that that's actually the best route to go. I think actually Millie holds a very important part of the piece of this puzzle.
Okay.
Calm down.
This is my son right now.
All right.
Buddy.
Come on, let's go. To the car. I've been more than nice. To the car.
I don't understand what's happening right now. Like, please share.
I've been more than nice. Really? So you go to a woman's home and you arrest her in front of her kids, and that's being more than nice. You did hear a burglary charge. Now, I'm not going to try and get into the substance or the merits of the claim, of the action. I just don't have the facts in front of me. I understand that today the matter will go before court in Ravenna, Ohio. Millie was arrested, and I understand Gavin, her common law spouse, was arrested as well. And the kids were placed, I think, with one of the grandparents. I was advised that at 11 a.m. today, so about an hour ago, juvenile court started to sit in Ohio to determine what will happen to the kids. But how can you do that if the mom and dad are still in jail? Now, apparently later today they'll have their arraignment. But why would you do juvenile court first when you don't know if the parents are good? It's a lot of curious things. Now, I'm not an expert in Ohio law. I'm a former lawyer, but a Canadian lawyer. So I know there's
Jesus,
a
a
few things here
Canadian
that are
lawyer,
sketchy
eh?
from my point of view, but it seems to me, or at least it certainly seemed to me just watching that video, that things here are irregular. I'm not necessarily saying illegal, but to arrest a mom in front of
Tony over in Twitch universe says, I bet Millie's mom is hotter. Can anyone confirm this? Tony, tune in tomorrow. I actually believe Dan Ryan will confirm that.
her kid, when that mom is not a flight risk and clearly not a danger to herself or others.
In fact, I know he
that
will.
is a choice. That's a choice. And why was that choice made? Well, Millie is a conservative journalist, a skeptic, a dissident, and she...
Is she conservative? Is that how conservatives behave? I actually think some of the journalism that Millie does is actually kind of good. She did one with this black guy, bringing him across to the other side, talking to him and such. Now that might have actually been set up. Ah, shit! I gotta upload something. Shit! I gotta upload some. No, I'll pull it up. I don't need to copy it. I got something lined up for you after the break that fits with that pretty well. That has to do with. I'm not even gonna say. I got something really fun lined up after we get through this, but sorry. Here, let's go on with this. I just wanted to say that.
He released a YouTube documentary about the U.S. government on that same day. Some people are connecting the two. I have no idea. The nature of the charges do not seem to be associated with the content of the video, but is the timing, is the manner of the arrest? I don't know. And
Heathcliff over in Twitch universe says, ask the question, did Ezra Levant get his info from Tory? You will hear in this interview that he was actually getting it from another guy. And I met the guy, kind of skinny guy, friend of theirs over in lives near Millie and Gavin's. He was not getting much of this from Tory. Some, yes. Something most people don't know, and just throw this out there. I don't know what the truth is to this. Gavin told me, and it was, I remember exactly where I was. I was on the phone with him. I was in D.C. It was just after the day that I'd spoken to Matt Gaetz, and he ran. Talking to him on the phone. And this is while all this was going on, right? So this is Millie had just gotten out of jail. It had taken me about 5 days to get from Austin to D.C. And probably like Wednesday or Thursday of the week. She had been arrested on Friday, so not quite a week. And Gavin told me that these guys were withholding the money from them that they had raised for their defense, and that in fact Gavin had to take legal action. That's just what he told me. He had said that they had tried to set him up with attorneys that were like deep state attorneys. I actually think this guy was kind of legitimate. I mean, he could be a complete deep state tool, I don't know. I don't know who the frick this guy is. We are listening to something that happened, and we need to resolve facts from what could oftentimes and easily be bullshit. I get that. We'll let him continue.
over the weekend, people were asking me, well, what about the charges? They don't seem to be political in nature. You heard the word burglary, and I heard some different explanations and excuses, and I thought, you know what? I'm not going to get into the substance of it. I'm going to focus on one thing only. let's get Millie a legal defense fund, because unless she is independently wealthy, and I don't think she is, getting lawyers to help her, her common law husband, her kids, I just know that's going to be tens of thousands of dollars. I just know it. And so
Common law husband.
I called some of Millie's friends and colleagues.
Is common law husband kind of like that rule that if you've stayed somewhere that's like squatters' rights or something? He's just squatted next to Millie so long that now he's a common law husband.
I don't know Millie. I don't have a personal connection with Millie, but I know we have friends in common. And I called them up on Friday and I said, what are you guys doing? Are you going to do a crowdfund? Da-da-da. And none of them really were. And I'm not going to judge that. I mean, maybe they don't know how to do it. Maybe they didn't want the notoriety or the publicity. So I called 2 or 3 people, and they said no. And I said, well, fine, I'll do it. It's very easy to set up a crowdfunding page, actually. Now I'm based in Toronto, Canada, so unfortunately the rules of GoFundMe is that the crowdfund has to be set up in Canadian currency. So, but other than that one wrinkle, there's really no reason why anyone in the world couldn't
Canadian
set up a
currency
crowdfund for Millie Weaver. So I did that.
Fucking Canadian quarters. I'm from Michigan. Those things are evil.
At about 3 o'clock Pacific time, I was out west on Friday, and I'm very pleased that over the weekend, look at that, $152,000. Now that's Canadian.
That's Canadian, which is like $300 American.
Mini bucks, but that's still more than $100,000 US. So I'm very pleased with that. And GoFundMe, well, it's a lot of dough coming in, so they asked me some questions. You want to click on the...
But it is a good point. It wasn't $150,000. Everybody says that. It turned out to be like in U.S., and then they're going to take a percentage, I'm sure. It probably came to a little over 100,000. I know, but I know that initially it was like 50,000. They were estimating 50,000 each, the attorneys, because the judge would not allow one attorney to represent all 3 of them, so they had to retain 3 attorneys.
Update. The GoFundMe said, well, we're going to ask you to clarify who you are and what's going on, because we're getting a lot of dough. So just click read more. Yeah, so they said, can you give more information? Who are you? Where are you from? What's your relationship to the parties you're raising funds for? How will the funds be used? Be specific. If you intend to withdraw the money, how you plan to send the funds to the parties you're raising? So yeah, read some more. So I'll just skip to point 4. Ideally, I will assign the ability to withdraw funds to Millie herself, or to any designate she directs me to do. For example, her lawyer. This is a GoFundMe function. I've been trying to find out if she is a lawyer already or other information. From what I understand, she's in jail until Monday, but I hope that changes. Any other questions, feel free to contact me, but there's really not more to it.
So what he's reading here is before the argument I described, the falling apart I described between Gavin and Ezra.
I do not have any reliable information about the charges against her, but that's irrelevant to me. I don't like how she was arrested and know that she'll need help covering legal bills and other expenses. So that's what I wrote on...
Oh, so this is where I put a pause. You like that? Which actually makes a great spot to, let's do this here. Where am I gonna, I need just a good window to go to. We'll go to the welcome window. Hello to the welcome window. Makes a good start, good spot. Kind of go over that a little bit. And what I want to do is when we come back, we'll go to break in a few minutes, and when I come back, I'm going to play a interview with Ezra Levant and Dave Rubin and Nick Searcy. So that is going to be what we've got coming up when we come back from the 10-minute break. So the Ezra Levant being interviewed with Nick is quite interesting. But actually, I've got about 12 more minutes left in this that I wanted to play. Probably not going to do it all, but I probably will play a few more minutes of it. Actually, let's do this. We've got 4 minutes to it. Let's play this out for another, for the remaining, and then we'll go out at 8 o'clock and maybe discuss a little bit and then go out at 8 o'clock.
And I believe that a journalist who's arrested should have a legal defense fund. I've done that before.
Okay. Can we just stop there and say we're not having this conversation right now in 2022 with really good hindsight on a lot of things that happened, right? Let's say we're right there at that time when Ezra Levant is saying this. Is what he's saying wrong? If it is, then I'm wrong. If what he's saying there is wrong, then I'm wrong. I personally, though, believe that journalism is one of the most important things to our country. It was literally written into the Constitution under the First Amendment, not like towards the end. It was all the way up to the front, right? And it was there for a reason, right next to protecting our freedom of speech. But it's been corrupted. I get that. But that doesn't mean that we just ignore everything. We needed to, and we should. And if this happens tomorrow, God forbid that this situation here results in, oh wait, I'm too late. It already did. Nobody gave a shit when James O'Keefe was raided. And I defend him on that, even though I believe they actually probably had reason to, potentially had reasoning to raid him. Because I see people that he's directly connected to Tory, who was directly connected to Hunter's laptop and boasting to me about Haley's diary. So is it unreasonable to think that Tory was connected to whatever the FBI was investigating with James O'Keefe? No, that's not unreasonable. Does that mean I don't think James O'Keefe is a journalist? No. Well, maybe. But that's because I'm not a journalist. I'm an anti-journalist journalist. Joe Rogan's not a journalist. Ask him. He's a podcaster. Although he actually is somebody that a lot of people go to for information. Jon Stewart's not a journalist. Ask Jon Stewart. He's a comedian. Yet people think of him more as a journalist. Doesn't even want him to. Why is it people, and if something happened to Jon Stewart, people would be rallying around him to protect him. If something happened to, when something happened to Joe Rogan, the world rallied around Joe Rogan. And he's like, I'm not a journalist. And then something actually happens to a journalist and everybody's like, oh, fuck, well, let's go on. We wouldn't want to talk about that journalist. We certainly wouldn't want to talk about Obama's shadow net 3 months before, 3 months before an election, And we certainly don't want to be talking about how all the things that Millie was pushing and all the things that were in ShadowGate basically foreshadowed Trump's loss. I was in there talking about social media psychological warfare being used to influence elections, right? So I called that one because it kind of seems like it influenced that election, but Trump lost. Kind of seems like they knew he was going to lose. Kind of seems like maybe they knew since I filed my Ketan back in January and before Millie and Gavin contacted me, and they were setting up because they knew they were going to lose, because they knew that Trump, Obama's national security advisor, and then the partnerships between Atlantic Council and Facebook and all of these things had taken away their ability to win like they did in 2016. They won in 2016 from their meme wars and fake personas and IIA, social media psychological warfare tied to journalist assets that they had. That's how they won. Democrats saw it, said, hey, let's take this weapon away from them. And they signed partnerships with all the major social media companies out there, and then selectively went through and just started banning them all. Trump's army was wiped out, devastated, and the impact of that shifted millions of votes away from Trump. Not necessarily for Biden, but away from Trump that he had before, that he didn't have anymore. And he had been, basically all of his people had been shut off of Twitter, and relegated to the more conspiracy theorist websites like Telegram, right? And you can't really run an IIA operation and psyop your own people. The objective is to be able to get on platforms that your opposition is on and get in there and influence them. You don't need to influence your own people on Telegram. You need to be able to, that's how it works. Maybe they knew that. Maybe they figured it out. Sorry to have broken that to you, kids, but you were too late. They figured it out, and they fooled, and they won. And now you're all bent out of shape from it. We're going to return in 10 minutes. Enjoy your break, and I will talk to you. I hope to see you back, and I think you're really going to find this interesting, what we got coming up here. Thanks very much. I look forward to seeing y'all.
He's worked on Disney films. And has a small farm where he raises and trains animals for television wildlife films and feature movies. Like many wildlife filmmakers, Carrick is highly resourceful. For a planned feature film, a producer needed aerial shots of geese flying through a hurricane. So Carrick has rigged up a wind machine with a front projection screen next to which the birds can fly at up to 40 miles an hour without going anywhere. The last time this system was used was in the filming of Superman in Hollywood. The birds apparently enjoy their work and are reluctant to leave when the machine's turned off and the wind drops.
Most of my films up to date have been educational films, and they're to show some aspect of the animal's life, its adaptation, how it lives. And so I want to be able to, if you're talking about it feeding, and I want to see it feeding. I always had the belief in making films, if you're going to talk about anything, I want to see it, the frame full of it. There's so many people, you sit there and look at a picture of an animal staring at you while the narrator is telling you all the things it does. That's next to useless, but if you want to see what it does, then I have to stage. If you want to see a picture of a hawk catching a mouse or an owl catching a mouse, the chances of getting it in the wild, you might sit out for 100 years, but I could stage it.
In order to stage scenes, you must have partially tame, controllable animals. They're the staple of many, if not most, wildlife films, enabling cameramen to get close-ups of animals, which would be difficult and costly to film otherwise. Instead of finding a beaver's lodge in the wild, you build one. With judiciously selected shots and careful use of close-ups, the audience need never know that what they're seeing isn't the real thing.
Do you think the people who watch these films understand that? Do you think they're under the impression that you're out there sitting in the woods waiting for these things?
No, I'm sure everybody knows now. Disney's been doing this for 20 years. And one film, they did a film called The Living Desert, and most of that was filmed in little studios. And they built all the interiors and then put mice and rattlesnakes and everything in their little sets and to do the things they wanted. They had a nice moonlight sequence in that. Well, that was all shot in daylight with studio lights with blue lights to look like moonlight.
In her own good time, Juliet appears. He greets her with open arms, all 8 of them, and draws her close. The lady takes her cue and swoons. A bit theatrical, perhaps, but it's a technique that always works, even with tarantulas.
The Disney people were nice to work for, but I didn't really enjoy working on the films because, on the whole, the narrations were terrible and there was so many inaccuracies.
Ahead lies the Arctic shore, and beyond, the sea. And still the little animals surge forward. Their frenzy takes them tumbling down the terraced cliffs, creating tiny avalanches of sliding soil and rocks, and seemingly indestructible lemmings.
This is another sequence from Disney's White Wilderness, possibly the most infamous of any of his wildlife movies. It purports to show lemmings deliberately leaping to their deaths in the Canadian high Arctic.
They reach the final precipice. This is the last chance to turn back.
Bill, you worked on a film called White Wilderness, Disney film. Do you recall a scene involving lemmings in that?
Yes.
Did you shoot that?
No. There were about 3 cameramen working on that. What did you hear about the lemmings?
Can you recreate the scene for us? Do you remember?
I know it was taken. It was a recreated thing done in Canmore in Alberta.
You say recreated, how?
Well, they built a set. It looked like the Arctic. And had a nice painted sky for a background and a bought their lemmings up in Churchill. The Eskimo kids run around, caught them at 25 cents a piece, and shipped them all to Canmore. And they made a little thing like a turntable and ran the lemmings around and filmed the lemming migration to the sea.
Now, the scene showed dozens, hundreds of lemmings.
It's the same lemmings over and over again.
Falling into a body of water, purportedly the Arctic Ocean.
Yeah, that was the Bow River.
The Arctic Sea.
That was the Bow River.
It's not given to man to understand all of nature's mysteries. But as nearly as he can surmise, it would appear that the lemmings consider this body of water just another lake. And if it's a lake, then it must have a farther shore. And so they strike out boldly. But gradually, strength wanes. Determination ebbs away. And soon the Arctic Sea is dotted with tiny bobbing bodies.
The water in which those tiny bodies bobbed flows under the ice behind me. Not the ice of the Arctic Sea, but the ice of the Bow River, which runs through downtown Calgary, about 1,100 miles south of the Arctic Circle. And those lemmings didn't jump in, they were pushed or thrown. As it appears that Walt Disney's version of the life of a lemming is about as far from the truth as the Bow River is from the Arctic.
Roy Disney, Walt's nephew, worked his way through the Disney organization, eventually running the Wildlife Film Division.
Do you recall the Disney film called White Wilderness?
Yes. I didn't work on that film, but I was kind of around when it was being made.
Do you remember the lemming sequence?
Yes, I do.
Can you recreate it for us?
Well, the lemmings, of course, have this thing about overbreeding every now and then on some sort of a 7-year cycle or something and rushing off to commit suicide, quote unquote. And as I recall, they did stage some of that because that is the thing that happens once every 7 years and probably you don't know where. Yet over they go, testing themselves bodily out into space.
That doesn't go beyond the line between recreation and cruelty or misrepresentation?
It's on the edge of it. There's no question about that. As I say, I think my memory of it, watching
they shoved it over,
told me that they were doing something like that. I didn't know what because you never see off stage what's going on. If the cameraman's smart enough. No, that doesn't surprise me enormously.
Does it concern you or bother you?
It's a shame that sort of thing has to happen. The earliest way that these things were made was people would bring in film that was already shot, and we would either buy it or not, depending on whether it fit needs or appealed to us or whatever. So it's certainly possible that a certain amount of that sort of thing was going on before we even knew it existed.
Certainly possible.
Whether or not Walt ever knew that that sort of thing was happening, I really wouldn't know. He was a pretty smart fellow, and he may have made some good guesses that it could happen. We've lost a few.
That journalist is like, are you kidding me? Are you telling me that Walt Disney almost certainly knew that he sent hundreds of little lemmings to their death? Oh, and better yet, you ever heard of that expression, following them like lemmings off a cliff? That age-old saying was based on that bullshit that was completely made up. So literally our history has been shaped by these guys that they have clearly no moral or ethical boundary. It was like, wow, we need to lemmings swim. Yeah, I hope they can swim across the river. They just sent them out to their death. That was the last shot. But so it's like, we've been we've just been played. This video here, I highly recommend it. It's a Cruel Camera, Animals in Movies. This a social media friend, Clay, shared this with me. Actually, they shared something completely different, and this ended up being like a rabbit hole click that I found. And I was like, listen, what a great way to show people how long this has been going on. Now, I'm 56 years old. If you go on with this, and I'm not going to really, but if you go on to this, you'll see Marlon Perkins, Mutual Overhaul's Wild Kingdom. Holy shit. They were made. The stuff that they did. And then this guy, he's like, if you're my age, I can't think of who this is, but these guys were all, I think this guy was with the head of some zoo. Here's a
on top of him as he went down the hole. I was the one that shot the lion. The lion came out of that trap, hit the center of the arena, which was almost 60 feet across. And it seems to me still to this day that he only took about one step, and he hit the far fence and disappeared completely into the fence. I thought he'd gone out, but it threw him back out in the middle of the arena, and he sat up and came in a charge that I've never seen in my life. And Shannon fired about 3 times, but missed each time. And the lion came on top of him as he went down the hole. I was the one that shot the lion.
The third shot went through his spine.
But what you see on the screen when you're watching African Safari is the fearless white hunter facing the
Well, of course, what happened is that when he went down the hole and the dust came up, it looked like the lion got him.
That was in a stadium. Yeah, Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom. That was some jacked up shit. I mean, it was a race to the bottom. These are like it was like the InfoWars of documentary television, wildlife documentary television. But what did that do? What did that do to real documentarians or real stuff? These people wanted to increase their audience. And the only way to do that is to be able to capture these scenes, which that wildlife guy said were like, you'd be there 100 years waiting to capture. And I hope, you had your lens cap off, right? And you, when it did happen and you were right there and ready and got that shot, but yet they had to reproduce these shots every week. So a lot of these things were shot like in the Everglades in Florida, but represented, literally represented in the credits as being in like freaking Africa and shit, or South America, right? Absolutely, absolutely. You would think that like Democrats would be all over this, but no. Democrats, Disney owns the Democrats now, right? Disney freaking owns the Democrats. Bought and paid for. And it's really quite sad, It just cost them a few rainbow flags and they were golden, right? But does that make this okay? I don't think it should, because the damage it did to like documentaries, like wildlife documentaries as a whole, is pretty much the same damage it did to that tiger or whatever, that lion. It's just not good for the industry. So why is that? I thought I would bring that in because, that's really not much different than what we're dealing with here now, you know?
You may know that a couple years ago I really went to bat for an old buddy of mine who used to be an employee here, Tommy Robinson, who was arrested in the United Kingdom and actually put in solitary confinement for weeks for a journalistic crime. So it's...
Full disclosure, I kind of like Tommy Robinson, but that's probably not good. He's like, seems to be like a bit of a racist bastard. But, you know, why is it that, you know, it's tough sometimes when like a bad person is the one that kind of rescues a legitimate cause. I guess that's what I'm dealing with a lot in our own country, right? You've got these, you know, con artists and scammers that are just, you know, kind of running an operation off of a legitimate issue, and then once in a while they'll get lucky and actually contribute to more to the solution just by accident.
Sort of what we do here, I was joking in this morning's meeting, this is the 4th journalist that we've helped bail out of jail. Now normally, if it's a liberal journalist, the ACLU is all over it and gets a pro bono. Oh, thank God, look at this.
Jesus.
Breaking news, breaking news.
Okay, so by the way, I didn't edit that. The only thing I edited was, well, you'll see if I edit, it's got like it'll have the coin. So I don't know why I don't know what was cut out from there.
Millie, Gavin, and Chuck all are being released this afternoon. The kids will stay with Millie and Gavin. Everybody should be reunited by dinner. All great news. Just finished speaking with the attorneys a few minutes ago. Thanks. Isn't that amazing? You just heard it live with our GoFundMe because they don't think a journalist should have a lawyer. I mean, I have not gotten into the weeds of the charges against her or the evidence against her. I'm not there in Ohio. I'm not there in the court. I mean, as instinctively, I don't like a mom being separated from her kids. Instinctively, I don't like what I saw in that arrest video, and I gave you my thoughts about the timing and method of that arrest. But I haven't gotten in the weeds there. I haven't gotten in the weeds about her YouTube video. I just think a young reporter, especially one who's independent, should have a lawyer in court. Is that a crazy idea? It seems to me a pretty American idea that everyone should have a lawyer in court, not just for them, but for the system to work.
See? Now, one more segment. You like how I broke that up? But I gotta share this.
You don't want to railroad people just because they can't afford a lawyer. Let's get a really good lawyer. Ferris Bueller, $5. Hopefully Tucker Carlson, Fox News will pick up Millie's story and your great reporting. Thank you, Rebel News Daily. Well, thank you. Sandy Stamps, $5. ShadowGate is the reason Millie has been arrested. They had just uploaded it, and then the cops were there to arrest her. It's the deep state. I don't know if that's true or not. I think some of that truth will come out, perhaps even today in court. As I said before, if you put the shoe on the other foot, I always like to say, what would happen if it was the other side? So you're saying Millie was arrested because simultaneous to her arrest, she was rolling out a politically charged documentary that YouTube has deleted as well, which is suspicious. Tell me the last time YouTube has deleted a...
So real quick, I just shared a link to YouTube that I was shared to from Twitch. A good friend of mine actually lives over in Tampa, does a lot of good like research and stuff for a lot of people that you probably follow. Her name's Bryn. She's sick and in the hospital right now. So if you can help, I shared a link there, and please, you know, at least if you can't help financially, just, you know, keep her in your prayers, and I'm sure she'll be fine. She's a tough cookie, but just throw that out there, and I hope you get better, Bryn, otherwise known as Southern Charms.
Left-wing documentary. Hate speech, like I say, I only watched the first opening clips, But I don't believe Millie Weaver would have produced hate speech. I just don't think that.
It was actually labeled or banned from YouTube as hate speech. Specifically, what I was told anyway, specifically the hate speech was directed to my comments about how I was concerned that the Obama phones could have been used. The data and such from the Obama phones could have been used to influence the Michael Brown riots. Just having a conversation, right? And apparently that was hate speech. At least that's what I was told.
I think that's just, hate speech is what the left calls speech that they hate. That's hate speech. No, it's not. You just hate it. So I don't know if there's a connection between the documentary and the arrest, but I know if this were Michael Moore coming out with a new anti-Trump documentary, and the day he was coming out with it, he was arrested on...
Okay, can we stop there for a moment? I am not being a Michael Moore apologist, although Canadian Bacon, in full disclosure, is one of my favorite movies. But Michael Moore is a really bad example for him to use, because Michael Moore is one of the only people on the left that I legitimately saw take Trump seriously, saying that he was like one of those few people that said, yeah, he thought Trump was going to win before Trump won. And like when he did this thing like with the he did another thing where he actually was quite supportive of Trump, right? Y'all will know what I mean if you saw it. But so legit, I get what he's saying, but the example he used with Michael Moore, who I get it is a lefty for sure, but I mean, come on. How can you not like Canadian Bacon? That was freaking hilarious with John Candy. Are you kidding me?
A cryptic charge that was by a secret grand jury and arrested in front of his family and embarrassed. Oh yeah, I think there might be a headline or two in the New York Times other than, how come they're crowdfunding his legal defense? New York Times would have crowdfunded his legal defense. Not a bad account, $2. Aren't there limits to what the press can publish? Yeah, there are some limits. But in the United States in particular, they have the First Amendment, which says Congress shall not abridge the freedoms of the...
Don't you like when you have a Canadian telling us the U.S. Constitution?
Press. In Canada, it's Section 2 of our Charter of Rights called Fundamental Rights and Freedoms. So there are some limits, but in Canada, the phrase is only those reasonably justifiable in a free and democratic society. So you can't infringe someone's freedoms lightly. People are allowed to have wrong opinions. They're allowed to say things that are wrong. Because, by the way, who's to know what is right and wrong unless we have right and wrong quarrel and let truth and falsehood grapple? You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to send a text to, I'm just going to say, any news, because Matt, who is a family friend and advisor.
That's who it was. It was Matt who was the one that was providing apparently the most immediate and up-to-date communications with between Ezra and Millie and Gavin.
To Millie and her Kamala husband.
Not Tory.
Who's just been really working all weekend. I've been in touch with him a number of times all weekend. He's trying to find lawyers. He's trying to deal with the criminal side, with the juvenile side. So much going on. He's at the courthouse. I just texted him any news, and I see him writing back to me right now. So when he's done typing that, I'll let you know what he says.
Doesn't have his number up there.
Oh yeah, that's right. We got this fun video. Oh, let me just read this. Oh, thank God! Look at this. Breaking news, breaking news, breaking news. Millie, Gavin, and Chuck all are being released this afternoon. The kids will stay with Millie and Gavin. That would have been
Monday.
Everybody should be reunited by dinner. All great news. Just finished speaking with the attorneys a few minutes ago. Thanks. Isn't that amazing? You just heard it live. Let me read it again. This is from Matt. I'm not going to say his last name. He's a family friend and advisor to Millie and her husband, and he's literally at the court right now. And I just texted him. I just said, any news? And he wrote, Millie, Gavin, and Chuck all are being released this afternoon. Here, I'm gonna screenshot this, and I'm gonna send this to you if you wanna put it on the screen.
Real professional operation he runs there. I'm jealous.
There's no sensitive phone numbers on it, no.
Although I take calls on my show.
Everybody should be reunited by dinner. All great news. Just finished speaking with the attorneys a few minutes ago. Thanks. Isn't that great? Isn't that great? What a good ending to a strange and troubling story. Now, obviously, it's not an ending.
Obviously.
It's an ending to the juvenile court. I was confused by the fact that this is great news. I want to tweet it. Do you mind if I tweet it?
Do you mind if he tweets it? I think we're okay. It's like, how much of this is real and how much of this is Marlon Perkins, right? Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom, or Disney, Disney Lemmings, right? Again, that kind of hurts, doesn't it? It's like everything you grew up believing was a lie. It was a justified lie, right? Oh, well, how else could we tell the story and get enough, how else could we tell the story and get enough commercial support to be able to have our nice homes? If we, or like our 4-car garages and shit like that. How else, right? So I don't know what's real and what is lemmings. I do know a good enough fake story can actually create over time, like fame, sayings. They can be embedded into history, like, oh, you wouldn't, like lemmings off a cliff. I mean, most people have heard that expression. Not everybody, apparently. I did run into one person that hadn't heard lemmings off a cliff. But, let me do this here. But, here we go. My daughter sent me a message. But, the reason that I put this together was because I had seen I had recently seen an interview about MSM MSM and let me see the exact title on this here. Nice. Hold on here. So this is the Room Report, media censorship ramping up. Saren Gonzalez, Nick Searcy, and Ezra Levant. Now, the reason for this is, and we're not going to do the whole roundtable. There's just a few segments in this that I wanted to play right just at the beginning. There is another segment like a bit in, And then I want to go into something that kind of happened with Nick Searcy and I just recently, and it kind of, it's disappointing for sure. So let's go on with this here for just a few moments.
All right, we are live on the World Wide Web. I'm Dave Rubin. It is a Friday, which means it's time for another Friday Roundtable Panel Extravaganza. And joining me are the founder of Rebel News, Ezra Levant, the host of The News and Why It Matters on Blaze TV, Sarah Gonzalez, and an award-winning actor and the director of the new movie Capital Punishment, Nick Searcy. Ezra, Sarah, Nick, welcome to the Rubin Report.
Thank you.
Nice to be here.
I like having a panel with all guests with 4 letters in their first names. It makes it.
Hey, can I just throw this out here right now? I just got a text message, which I believe is the approval for a new studio to move to a new location, which is going to reduce my expenses down tremendously, yet still yet provide a nice quiet studio environment where I'll be able to continue to put out this information and kind of see what I can do, to try to be able to hold some accountability, right? Because this is just starting to get interesting. But, the people that have been, when you come out and you speak your truth, with me, I was freaking attacked for it. Now, I wasn't really attacked much post ShadowGate. Tori was attacked significantly. Millie, Gavin were attacked. But for the most part, people largely left me alone. Initially, I had a few people. Akbar pissed me off. He called me a junkie veteran. But the majority, like 90% of the attacks were on those guys. It was only after I came out, it's only after what happened with when I was going to meet with Lynn Wood back on December 3rd. And I believe on December 2nd, that Friday, I mentioned that I was going to be leaving and going to his plantation to see if I could get this information to him. And it was information about John Here to Help, Tori, a number of things that I believed he was being set up on. And why was I going to do that then? Because Lynn Wood had just come out calling out Patrick Byrne and General Flynn and these others. And I had been speaking out, or at least starting to really ask questions to these same people. And I was I wasn't getting answers. I was getting clown emojis from freaking Joe Flynn and shit. Right? So I ended up agreeing to do or participate as a subject matter expert in psychological warfare in a documentary that Nick Searcy put out. And it was called Capital Punishment. I happened to be in D.C. at the time that they were doing their last shooting. Apparently, a lot of people that they had lined up to be part of that backed out for various reasons. I believe some were even threatened by the FBI. I don't know what the purposes that people were starting to back out for. I did not know how much it was supported General Flynn, right? I didn't know that. All these things were really weird. Millie Weaver was in it. I was in it here. Let me do this here really quick. I'm only a minute into there, so if I have to restart that. But here's my segment in
they have people on both sides. The people on Antifa, and they control and fund the people in the Proud Boys.
Both sides are being pitted against each other in order to cause chaos.
Yes.
Why did they want to do that?
Well, if you want to increase funding and support or for the Proud Boys, do this. If you want to increase and radicalize and get more people brought into Antifa, you get these things going.
So the reason, so what I was talking about there, though, what I was talking about was, oh shit, see, now I had that set to restart. Oh no, good, we're okay. What I was talking about there was like General Flynn and General McChrystal, who ended up being like the victim in this documentary, and I was pretty much labeling them as the archetypes of this. And again, when you start to see the connections, when you see the connections to Flynn, the Oath Keepers, and even more like with my interview tomorrow with Dean Ryan, you're going to see connections going back even further to the same damn people. You know what? And I mentioned this to Dean. I half think that the Bundy Ranch incident may have been kind of like the beginning of where they started to put together the quote-unquote insurrectionists, or I would actually argue a better description would be what Bannon called his neurotics. It's not what I'm calling them. It's what Steve Bannon called them. Or at least according to Brittany Kaiser, who worked for his company, Cambridge Analytica, who called them, in court testimony under oath, neurotics. That's how they categorized them, right? But when you start to see all these connections, and you see how the Oath Keepers were wrapped up in that, Stuart Rhodes, you see how Pete Santilli was connected to that. He did time in jail. He swears on his grave, on his mother's grave, that and God rest her soul, if she's still alive, I don't know. But he would swear on his mother's grave, if she was dead, that no ill wishes there whatsoever. That Stuart Rhodes was a FBI informant. Can't make this shit up, people. Because now, isn't it funny how Pete Santilli thinks that he was informant, that Rhodes was an informant, and Rhodes was so closely connected to Epps, who was an Oath Keeper for sure. We don't know if he was, like working with the feds, but we do know he was working as an Oath Keeper. It was ran by somebody who might very well have been a Fed, right? I wonder how I ever ended up in the documentary. But as you'll see in a moment, when it came down to protecting your network and your own ass, or throwing a frickin' me under the bus, which is usually the case. I get that. I still believe in the end that I will be the one that's found on the right side of history. But I get it. I piss a lot of people off with my position and my not so artful tactics. But, because I actually had a lot of respect for Nick Searcy. But, without any discussion or argument, which I'll well, let's show those right now because we are getting towards the end here, and I don't know how much more I'll be able to show this. But Nick, this was from the other day, right? So I had put something out. I'd put something out earlier. We the Acknowledged. Yeah, it's Tony. I'd put out, for real, we need to extend an olive branch, moderate left. And Nick's like, there's no moderate left. No, there aren't. Wishing there wasn't, doesn't make it. So I jumped in there with You Can't Name One, and I'm like, I can name new. But that was Flynn and McChrystal. But actually, that was me. That was me poorly describing the situation. They weren't moderates. I was actually responding to something different in one of the things that was mentioned there. And I put, let's do this here. So I put, I wrote that poorly. I wasn't responding to the moderate point. I was responding to PSYOP. I agree there are no moderates in office. If they are in office, it's because they play ball. There are good moderate Americans. The cream isn't allowed to rise because they control the narrative. And same goes to social media assets. Vast majority there because they play ball. They know if they don't, they'll be destroyed personally and politically. Few have the balls to stand up against them. Look what happened to me, an Afghanistan vet. And then I put, here's one, and I put F.A. Taylor and Associates, right? Fred is a longtime friend. He's a 3-time Purple Heart recipient and should have Medal of Honor. I'm working on that. Fred ran as a moderate Democrat in 2008, but got no support from party. He was one person I personally knew he was the first person I personally knew to support Trump. He won't run now. Well, I imagine, I would suspect though, if somebody like Nick Searcy asked him, he would. And then I went on to say Fred is a longtime friend. He's a 3-time Purple Heart recipient and should have Medal of Honor. I'm working that. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. We need to get Fred Medal of Honor. In the process, we can show Americans there are real heroes. Fred did not open a D.C. lobby firm and profit from weapons. Oh. Like General Flynn did with Flynn Group, like General McChrystal did with McChrystal Group. Actually, I think they both did it out of McChrystal's garage together. I don't know if I've never been able to confirm that, but I've heard it from several pretty good sources. What about Jones Group International? I'm sick of these, Stone, Manafort, all these. I'm sick of these D.C. lobbies. If we can have that argument. In 30 plus years following Fred's final wounds, forcing his retirement, he donated over 10,000 hours to help wounded vets. And Fred then chimed in, "Hi, Pat, any progress on getting my Medal of Honor recognition? I haven't heard anything for some time and would love to move ahead soon, thanks." I'm like, I'm working on it, Fred. I would love to be able for someone to see this man and to see, just because of my audience or something, I could possibly get it out to someone. But I've been attacked so much, it's not even funny. But, I'm not talking about anything with politics here, really. I'm trying to get a man right now the Medal of Honor in this conversation right here, right? Fred said, "I'm grateful, Pat. In my view, when someone has some clout, help us get a hearing. This initiative will get traction and move ahead positively." I said, "Our country should be focused less on politics and more on honor. In my opinion, we fix it by example, not protest and lawfare. And then Nick seriously chimes in saying, dude, the left is purging every institution in our country of everyone who disagrees with them politically, from the military, academia to Hollywood. Pretending you are above all of that is simply surrender. What the fuck was that? We're talking about trying to get a 3-time Purple Heart recipient, a friend of mine, the Medal of Honor. Now, do I believe that leading by example, by instead of putting up these Matt Gaetzes and the AOCs, put up a Fred Taylor, who's actually a really good man, who's proven himself a literal hero. Not one from Hollywood, you know, not make-believe, a real American hero. Is an example of what's good or can be good. So my response to that was pretty typical Bergy. Fred is the 3-time Purple Heart recipient and doesn't surrender. I spent nearly 2.5 years in the sandbox. Using the term surrender to either of us is quite offensively, actually, although Fred didn't tell me that. That's just, I'm just going to think. But I should have probably said that. And I said, sorry, Fred, moving on. And Nick's response to that, which he started kind of an argument with it from the beginning. He wanted just to create shit. He didn't want to help a Medal of Honor guy. He wanted to be able to try to separate himself from a problem that he made, a mistake that he made by putting me in his documentary, where I'm literally calling out the same people he was putting up there as being victims, who are now, by the way, being implicated in citing the January 6th. And I believe, like I said, I believe I'm on the right side of history with this. But instead of actually like doing the right thing, he's like, let's just throw this frickin' dumbass over here under the, otherwise, you know, and save my own ass. That's the way I see it. It's the way everybody freaking does it. They want to protect their networks with these guys, and they don't want to be attacked by these cyber people. That was no conversation there. If you were thinking that was something, that was just like to kill this. But I'm like, listen, that wasn't about him. That was about my friend Fred. And what I'm going to do is actually go out tonight with, I'm going to go out tonight with Fred Taylor. Here we go. Copy this over to my closing. But I got to stop the music. There we go. And what I wanted to do, though, as we close out tonight, is I want to thank everybody for tuning in. If you can help what we're doing here, please support us. freedomstream.tv shop, patreon.com, American Awakening. We're trying to put out what I believe is some good information. We're trying, you know, but the people that I'm dealing with, they're not good people. You know, they're Disney. We just continue to get lied to and lied to and lied to and lied to, and I'm just so sick of it. But I can't do this without your help. So you can take a look over there, twitch.tv. I really appreciate your support and your shares and your likes and all those little coins and things that they do. Those really help. They add up. It's not much, though. It's maybe like $300 sometimes a month now, since these guys just decided to turn on me and attack. The same people that now are being called out and exposed for, you know, doing bad things. So, if you can help out, please do. But what I'd like to do is I'd like to go out by playing a song by Fred Taylor. It's called Crawling Out. You know, how Nick ever turned that into... Now, keep in mind, this was right after his meeting with Ezra. I have no idea what Ezra but Ezra is obviously connected to Millie. He had Millie in there quite extensively. He had Jack Posobiec in there quite extensively. He's like Patrick Byrne. These guys don't give a shit about anybody but themselves. They really don't. And they will throw anybody under the bus. This is my opinion, but they'll throw anybody under the bus to keep from looking like they made a bad decision or made a mistake. I don't. If I make a mistake, I call it right out. I'll be like, wow, that was stupid and I did that. You know what? And that is actually the exact opposite of what a narcissist does, by the way. But what I'd like to do is we'll go out right now with Fred Taylor's Crawling Out. It was a song written for him. He's actually got a couple songs written about him and about his time in Vietnam. And I constantly let this man down. And I tell him to manage expectations. Every time I'm battling. I'm literally, it's me. It's Samson against Goliath. It is. And it's by people that just don't give two shits about anybody. But I think people are, and they'll do and they'll say anything that they need to be able to save their own ass. But I think people are getting kind of sick of that. I think that's actually becoming quite a turnoff. I think it's starting to. I think Republicans are starting to feel like they are being stereotyped with that, and I don't think that they like it because that shouldn't be them. Thank you very much, everyone. I hope to see you tomorrow.
Indiana boy in the jungle far from home. World on my shoulders, I'm 19 years old. They hit me from all sides, my blood begins to spill. Running out of hope and bullets up on Hamburger Hill. This could be the end of me, but there's a fire inside me saying I'm crawling out of here. If it's the last thing that I ever do, I'm crawling out of here. Know my mission and I'll see it through.
Bryn loves this song, by the way.
Woke up in a hospital, curtains round my bed. The doctors won't look me in the eye. No one here can tell me if I get to keep my legs. And all I wanted was to live a simple life. This could be the end of me, but there's a fire inside me saying I'm crawling out of here. If it's the last thing that I ever do, I'm crawling out of here. Know my mission and I'll see it through. I'll see it through. My life tells a story, and when that's all that remains, you tell them I took up the battle just like I was trained. I'm still keeping that same promise that I made on my first day. When they call my name as I reach the gate, I'll turn to you and wait. it's the last thing that I ever do. I'm crawling out of here. Know my mission and I see it through. I'm crawling out of here. There's something I've been put here to do. I'm crawling out of here. Know my mission and I see it through. I saw it through.
Thank you, everyone. Good night and God bless.